Alright, Cowboys Nation, we've talked about Stefon Diggs, we've talked about Tee Higgins, and we've even touched on the exciting 2025 draft class. But now, we need to dig deeper into how each of these moves could actually affect the Cowboys both in the short term and in the long run. This isn't just about adding a wide receiver to the roster. This is about shaping the future of the team and maximizing Dak Prescott's championship window. So let's break it down even further, because this is a make-or-break moment for the Cowboys as they look to push for a Super Bowl. Let's start with Stefon Diggs once again. If the Cowboys pull the trigger on a trade for Diggs, it's a bold move that shows they're all in for a Super Bowl run. But there's a lot more at stake here than just his on-field production. We all know Diggs has been a top-tier receiver in the league for several years now, and bringing him to Dallas would make the Cowboys an instant contender in the NFC. Diggs is a proven playmaker. He's a deep threat, a great route runner, and he has that unique ability to turn a short catch into a big gain. But we need to think about the bigger picture here, because adding him to the roster doesn't just mean a boost to the offense, it could also mean a significant shift in the locker room dynamic. Think about it, the Cowboys have a solid culture in place, with leadership from Dak Prescott and veterans like Tyron Smith. Adding someone of Diggs' caliber could shake things up a little, for better or worse. While we know Diggs is a professional, the fact that he's had some public frustration in Buffalo, especially with quarterback Josh Allen and the team's offensive scheme, raises some questions. Would he be able to buy into the Cowboys' system? Would he mesh well with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb? While the talent is undeniable, anytime you bring in a big personality like Diggs, there's an element of risk. However, if it works, and if he embraces the role, the Cowboys' offense could become unstoppable. We're talking about a dynamic trio of Doc, Lamb, and Diggs that would give defensive coordinators nightmares. Imagine how much easier it would be for Lamb to get open with Diggs drawing double coverage on the other side. Now, let's be clear here. The Cowboys have been building something special for the past few years. They have a solid defense, a great offensive line, and a good mix of veterans and young talent. But one thing has always been missing, that true X-factor in the receiving game, that explosive, game-changing wideout who can take over a game. Stefon Diggs is exactly that, but the cost of bringing him in could be steep. It's not just about the trade itself. Dallas would also have to rework its salary cap to accommodate his $14 million base salary. The Cowboys would need to make some tough decisions with their existing roster to make this deal work, like potentially cutting ties with some aging veterans or restructuring contracts. And remember, bringing Diggs in doesn't just add salary, it also means the Cowboys are investing heavily in a player who is 30 years old. In the NFL, that's getting up there in age for a wide receiver. While Diggs has shown no signs of slowing down yet, it's something to keep in mind when considering how many more years he has at an elite level. Okay, now let's pivot to Tee Higgins. This is where things get interesting. If you ask me, Higgins might actually be the more ideal option for the Cowboys. Why? Because he's younger, potentially cheaper, and could fit into the Cowboys' offense in a way that complements CeeDee Lamb even better than Diggs could. While Diggs is more of a pure, all-around playmaker, Higgins brings a different type of game. He's that big, physical receiver who can go up and get the ball in tight coverage, something the Cowboys really need in the red zone and on third downs. He's not just a speedster who burns past defenders, he's a mismatch in terms of size and strength. At 6'4", he can dominate smaller corners and has the ability to go up for contested catches in a way that few receivers can. Plus, the cost of acquiring Higgins would likely be lower than trading for Diggs. Cincinnati is facing a tricky situation with the salary cap and the looming extension for Jamar Chase. It's possible that they might not be able to retain both Higgins and Chase long-term, which opens up the door for a trade. Now, would the Bengals be willing to trade Higgins to an NFC contender like the Cowboys? That's the big question. But even if it's not Higgins specifically, we know that this is a strategy that could work for Dallas. The team needs that big-bodied receiver, and while Higgins is not on the same level as Diggs in terms of career production, he still has the potential to be a WR1 for the Cowboys and put up impressive numbers next to Lamb. And, there's something else to consider. If the Cowboys trade for Higgins, they wouldn't just be bringing in a great talent, they'd also be locking up a younger player for the long term. With Diggs, you'd be taking on more of a win-now mentality, knowing that Diggs may only have a few prime years left before his play starts to decline. But with Higgins, you're looking at a player who could still be at his peak for several more seasons. This gives the Cowboys more flexibility moving forward, especially with the salary cap. The team could keep Higgins around for a long time without worrying about a dramatic spike in his salary, and as the contract gets adjusted, he could be one of the key pieces to Doc's future success. But now, let's dive into what could be the most exciting, least risky option, the NFL Draft. The 2025 draft class is full of top-tier wide receiver talent, and some of these guys could come in and make an impact immediately. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., who could be one of the best wide receiver prospects we've seen in years. He has the size, the hands, the route running, and the ability to separate from defenders that could make him a top 5 pick. Pairing him with CeeDee Lamb would be a dream come true for Cowboys fans. And then there's Emeka Egbuka, another Ohio State product who's dynamic, versatile, and has a game that could translate perfectly to the NFL. And don't sleep on Xavier Worthy from Texas. He's another player who has explosive speed and the kind of upside that could make him a star in the league. Now, let's talk about the long-term picture. Yes, signing a veteran like Diggs or Higgins would make the Cowboys an immediate Super Bowl contender, but what happens in 3 to 4 years? If you go with a draft pick, especially someone like Harrison Jr., you get to develop that player from day one and grow a true WR1 to pair with Lamb for the next decade. Think about it, if Dak Prescott is still the quarterback in 2025, he could have a new, elite receiver alongside him for the next 10 years, and that would give the Cowboys a true window to compete for multiple Super Bowls, not just one. And even if the rookie doesn't immediately step into a WR1 role, you still have Lamb and a solid supporting cast. Plus, this option doesn't hit the salary cap nearly as hard, and you're not giving up future assets like you would with a trade. So, Cowboys fans, it's a tough decision. Diggs would give us a known commodity, and the chance to win right now. Higgins is the safer, potentially cheaper option with longer-term upside. And the draft? Well, the draft is all about potential. But one thing's for sure, the Cowboys need to add another weapon in this offense, and how they do it will define their future. So, what do you think? Is it worth going after Diggs, or is Higgins the better choice? Or do you roll the dice and go for a future star in the draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you. Cowboys Nation, what's the best route for the Cowboys to take in 2025? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth Cowboys coverage right here on this channel. I'll see you in the next one, and as always, go Cowboys!